Alright guys, so this will need a little bit of context before we begin. So basically, me and my friend had a match on Smash Bros. Ultimate. We decided to put a wager down. First of 5 wins. If I lost, I would review Sonic the Hedgehog for episode 1 and 2 in their own separate videos respectively. And have a guess who lost? Yeah, it was me. And quite frankly, I'm not very happy about it because if you know me, I really do not like these games. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 was a disaster when it came out, in my opinion. It's a game I've played when it came out and haven't touched since because I just don't like it, and this person is very aware of that. And surprisingly, they like this game, and that's probably the only reason they want me to review it, because I don't like it and they do, and they just want to try and either prove me wrong or put me through some sort of purgatory. So here we are today reviewing Sonic 4 Episode 1, and maybe next week or sometime soon Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2. So that's the quick disclaimer out of the way. But in terms of regular content, that'll return to normal after this review. But who knows, maybe there'll be some special announcements being made after this series before the next one begins, because I have a few things planned that I might want to put into play, but we'll see how that turns out and how I can get my schedule sorted. But anyways, thank you all for your patience, Happy New Year, and I hope you enjoy this mini-series. In terms of the plot in this game, I'm not sure there actually is a plot, basically. I honestly don't think this was exactly thought out by Sega or the people developing this game. But if I was to basically describe it in the best way possible, it's just a sequel to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where Eggman just basically comes back to Earth, Mobius, whatever it's called, and is just trying to set out to stop Sonic again, or just continue with his plans of domination. But the problem is with the plot, in relation to the gameplay with Sonic 4, it just doesn't exactly make much sense. I mean, yes, he's come back to Earth to, strive for dominance once again, but because this game just feels like a massive rehash, which I'm going to get into in just a moment, it doesn't exactly make sense, because of course the Death Egg was destroyed in Sonic 2, and then the Death Egg Station itself was destroyed in Sonic 3K. But then when it comes to other zones like Labyrinth, I don't think Eggman had access to places like that again, because it was filled with these traps, and again, it was part of the final zone in Sonic 1, but I'm not going to get too deep into it because it's a Sonic game, it's a Sonic platformer, 2D platformer. The plot isn't the main focus, it's not an adventure game, so I guess I'll just get right into the gameplay. Now, the gameplay for me and many others is where Sonic 4 just completely falls flat on its face. The first thing I'm going to talk about is clearly the control, and as you saw from the gameplay footage that was playing over the plot section that I was talking about a second ago, I attempted to basically move up the first tiny little slope and failed due to this game's lack of momentum. And what I mean by that is the way it controls is extremely weird and clunky compared to what it's trying to be. So the way speed worked in the older games was it was earned, it was a reward for you playing the game well. And that is why the games felt so satisfying to play, whether that be the classics or even some of the more relatively new adventure type games, so Adventure 1, 2, maybe Heroes. That's why they felt so good to play, because you earned the speed that you built up. It wasn't just given to you like that. With Sonic 4 you just hold right and you move at a fixed speed constantly. The only way you're ever going to go faster than that is if you go to a hill, which will have an increase of like 0.2. But then when it comes to getting speed at a fast rate, you have to just basically spam the shit out of the spin dash to get it started, and then if you want to continue on with the speed and momentum, you can just absolutely abuse the homing attack, because for some reason the homing attack's in this game, but I'll talk about that in a second. But when you do the homing attack here, it just gives you so much speed, basically an instant, to the point where you think, well, what's the point in even trying to run or roll into a ball if this just does this for me? And that's the problem when it comes to things like hills and slopes, because when you try to go down a massive hill, the first thing you try and do in a Sonic game is roll into a ball, because back in Sonic 1 that's how you got the speed, back in Sonic 2 you still got speed like that, Chemical Plant being a fantastic example. But in this game you just go extremely slow, so you're better just running down it or spin dashing down it. Or better yet, you can just jump off it, do a homing attack, and then you're instantly at top speed. It works really weird, and if you take your finger off of the button to move right, whether that be the D-pad or the joystick, you just stop dead in your tracks. And even though that can be used quite effectively to basically stop yourself in place in case of any dangers or whatever, which is nice, I suppose, it just brings the gameplay to a smashing halt. And even though this is a present issue in Sonic Heroes, which is a game that I will continuously praise its controls, I don't think it's as offensive in that game, because when it comes to Sonic Heroes anyway, the speed that you're getting in that game isn't basically designed around the classic formula. This game is trying to be a classic Sonic game, so I'm going to judge it like it is a classic Sonic game, which it just fails miserably at doing, because there's no, no feeling of reward of speed, there's no feeling of earned speed here. It's all just given to you in the click of fingers, and that's just disgusting. The footage that's playing over the screen, or should I say that was playing over the screen a while ago, is to do with these vines, and in the second act of the first stage. And the way that these basically behave is absolutely horrendous, because you will jump into it with a homing attack to instantly max out its speed, fair enough, but then when you're swinging on it regularly by going left and right, it just doesn't work half the time. And that's because this game has no sense of momentum in it. I could be stood still and I'll do a homing attack and I'm instantly halfway across the platform I'm standing on. But then if I was to try and move or do a roll, I go absolutely nowhere, and then just come to I get stopped in my tracks, dead on. I don't get any chances to move. And that is the biggest offence Sonic 4 makes, is by trying to disguise itself as a classic Sonic game. But with these controls, it just feels extremely clunky to play. I could barely figure out what to do half the time in most of these segments, because the control just wouldn't allow it. And that's a massive shame, because even though the level design isn't the best, it had potential with the control scheme in mind. And that is, again, one of the game's biggest offences. And in terms of level design, while we're on that topic anyways, I think these levels are designed basically around the gimmick of the homing attack. There is no way you're beating these levels without using the homing attack at least once, and if you do, fair play. But I don't know, these just feel extremely gimmicky. The game feels gimmicky itself. Everything is lined up perfectly for you to be using the homing attack, the vines being a good example. Ring boxes, springs, jumping off of loop-de-loops to make the homing attack work. Big gaps between jumps. The game wants you to use the homing attack, and while fair enough it is the main gimmick, it just doesn't work in the classic Sonic setting. The only time it has worked is in Generations 3DS, in my opinion, and even then it wasn't required. You didn't have to use it, I don't think. But in the console edition of Generations, you can unlock the homing attack for classic Sonic as basically a bonus, and that was optional. You didn't have to use it, and when you did use it, it worked like a charm because it didn't feel required. But here it is basically forced. In the other games, Adventure 1 is when it first came into play, same with Adventure 2, you don't have to use it. The only time you have to use it is if you're jumping up obstacles that basically want you to use it. So let's say the big totem pole boss thing from Sonic Adventure 2, the pyramid boss level, you know what I'm talking about, I can't remember its name. So the big rock giant in the pyramid, you have to use the homing attack to climb up its body, and that is required because that's just how the boss is designed. Stages in a game that is basically trying to be an entry into the classic series should not be designed around a modern mechanic, and even though that is the point of the game, bringing modern Sonic into this 2D setting, it doesn't work. I'm sorry, the homing attack feels really tacked on here, and it's just absolutely abused throughout the whole game, which it shouldn't be, because it's just not fun. You get your fun out of a classic Sonic game by earning your speed, by earning everything. In this game, you just either use the gimmicks or have it given to you, and that is not fun. But when it comes to other things around the gameplay, like I said, level design is poor, and level choice is poor as well, because this game is trying to take some of the best aspects of Sonic 1 and 2 and turn them and just basically mash them together. And have a guess what? Again, it doesn't work, because the first zone, Splash Hill, is obviously Green Hill. The next zone, which was a casino zone, I can't be fucked to remember its name, is Casino Night from Sonic 2. What was the next zone? Oh, it was a copy of Labyrinth Zone, with more gimmicks. What was the next zone? It was basically Metropolis from Sonic 2. And they all have 3 acts, similar to this first Sonic game, which, of course, that makes sense. But the next thing on the agenda in terms of gameplay, I suppose, would just be the special stages, but I'm going to give them their own section. So, overall thoughts on this game's gameplay, I just think it's horrendous. It's not fun to play, and that is the reason why I didn't like Sonic 4 at release, and it's still a reason why I don't like this game now. It's not fun. There is no sense of reward in this game. That's why I like the classic Sonic games. When I was younger, I never really used to like classic Sonic, but as I've grown older and I've understood how the gameplay formula works and why it works, I found it a lot more fun. This game is just not fun, because you don't earn anything, it's all given to you, and the things that you do earn It basically does time skips across the zone because you've learned how to use the homing attack effectively in a place where it's designed to be used anyway. And that is just piss poor level design, I'm sorry. Sonic 4's, but at least episode 1, I haven't got on to episode 2 yet, but from what I can remember anyways, they just make very terrible attempts at making classic level design. It doesn't work in this game, I'm sorry guys. I do not like this gameplay, and I'm sure many others don't either, but for those that do, and that do defend this game's level design, yeah, it's just not for me. The gameplay and its control does not work in its favour. Now this is where this gets a little bit controversial in terms of the whole Sonic fandom, because there's a few people I've seen that really do enjoy the visual style of this game, and there's a few people I've seen that don't, and I'm one of the ones that don't. But that is only half true. I don't like the visual style of Sonic or the enemies in render. The backgrounds, however, in this game, for the most part, do look fine enough. The casino one, which I'm just going to call Casino Night because that's what this level tries to be. Casino Night looks great, basically, but the other levels like Splash Hill, Metropolis, I'm not a fan of. Especially the Metropolis one, because I can't tell what's the background and what's the foreground. And that is a massive issue when your level is extremely difficult and involves you having to go on elements quite a lot that look like the background and foreground alike. So that's a massive issue right there with the graphics in this game, but I guess that filters more into level design as well. But you get the point. But visually this game is not too appealing in my opinion. I don't like the cel-shaded approach to Sonic. I think he looks disgusting. This was of course fixed in episode 2, thank the Lord, but I don't know, this game just doesn't hit home with me. I don't like the graphical style, and I think a lot of people also do not like the graphical style in this game. If you do, that's fine, of course you're entitled to your own opinion. I know a lot of people that do not like the Sonic Heroes renders, but I'm a massive fan of them. You know, it's entirely down to personal preference. But for me, this game just does not ride home. And here we have yet another factor of Sonic 4 that tries to be exactly like the classic games but fails miserably, and it just falls flat on its face, and that's the music. I can understand why you would like the soundtrack to sound like the classics. It just makes sense because that's the type of game you're trying to make here. But it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, I do not like the game's soundtrack. None of the songs are memorable, none of them are catchy, none of them sound good. I just don't think it's very nice. The reason why the classic games sound so nice is because they are catchy, and the Genesis sound chip just aids the songs in general. It doesn't sound like trying to be forced retro because it had no choice to be retro. It works in its favour, but with this game they are forcing a retro sound to it and it just does not work. Splash Hill doesn't sound catchy, it's just annoying. I don't even remember anything of the Casino Night, Metropolis or Labyrinth style music. The only other song I do remember is the boss music, and that's not the final boss, that's the stage boss theme. Why do I remember it? Because it's an absolute disgrace to Eggman's character. The music sounds like it's trying to make him a carnival clown, and I don't mean Carnival Night style type of clown, I just mean a clown. It's generic clown music if you ask me. It doesn't sound fun to listen. It's not good to listen to, it's not good to the ears, and it's not a good representation of Eggman's character. You want to know what a good boss theme sounds like? The boss themes from Sonic 3, Stage 2 in specific, because that is a fantastic boss theme, and I feel like it matches Eggman's character really well because it's fast paced and it sounds slightly menacing, but also has a hint of catchiness and goofiness to it, which is kind of Eggman's character. There's something about it that you like, but you don't know what it is, and that's just Act 2's boss theme in the summary. Sonic 1's boss theme for Eggman, it sounds menacing. Sonic 2 is a little bit goofier, but not goofy to the point where he sounds like something you'd see under a tent with a massive red nose. I do not like the soundtrack in this game. I'm sorry if you do. I don't like the Supersonic theme. I don't like any song in this game, in all honesty. I think they all suck. It's one of the worst Sonic soundtracks ever conceived. It's not one of the worst video game soundtracks ever conceived, not by a long shot, but Sonic soundtracks, yeah, this is pretty bad. Here's yet another aspect of Sonic 4 trying to take what worked in the originals and just failing miserably, and another thing that pisses me off about this game, and that's its special stages. Oh my god, they are bad. They are really, really bad. Sonic 1's special stages overall were not great, by any means necessary. They were terrible, in fact. But Jesus Christ, how do you butcher something that is already really bad and just make it even worse? I don't understand. it's the Sonic 06 Sonic Boom thing. Like, people said Sonic 06 was the worst Sonic game of all time, and that might have been true for a long time. But then Sonic Boom comes along and it's even worse, and I'm like, what? How do you mess up a franchise that's already in a state of, well, not decay, but already a dodgy one? Like, the special stages I didn't record, I did in my free time because I just couldn't be bothered. They took forever. And the reason is because obviously they are all fixed, like the designs are fixed. But the reason why the special stages in Sonic 1 worked is because you hit orbs to make the stage rotate. Beside that, you had to jump around the stage and basically roll along it to your advantage to make sure you don't fall off. What do you do in this game? Well, you have the option to jump, but all it seems to do is make the screen shake, which looks really weird and I don't like it. But you have to rotate the stage with the directional buttons or analog stick. Why do you have to move the stage yourself? I have no idea, and it's just the worst possible scenario for these special stages. They don't feel fun to control as they are with Sonic's movement around the special stage, but having to rotate the stage yourself, it just basically requires you to have an understanding of the stage or be able to sight read it. And while that was also the case with Sonic 1 special stages, I understand, it was so much more forgiving in that game because you had to control the way the stage moved rather than how the stage reacts to you moving it. You was in control of Sonic, not the stage, and that's the important thing here. Because you have to move the stage rather than Sonic, it just doesn't feel natural, it doesn't feel right, as a matter of fact. I think it feels awful. This is probably the worst special stage I've ever played in Sonic history. And I was not a fan of the original or Sonic 2's special stages, so that gives you something. I mean, a lot of people will give special stages like Sonic Heroes a lot of flack, or even Generations 3DS for being a copy of them, but at least they feel somewhat fun to play. This is just not fun. This is just, well, dog shit. The boss fights are once again another aspect of Sonic 4 that fall flat on its face. Not only are they blatant copies of the originals from obviously the zones that they're trying to copy anyways, but they're just made worse. I mean, they try to give it a second face to make it harder, but it just doesn't become harder because you can still just cheese these boss fights no matter the circumstance. The only one that you can't cheese is the quote-unquote secret final boss, but we'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of the boss fights as a whole, they're all just copies of the originals that they come from, essentially. That's the best way I can describe it. The final boss, when you first get introduced to it, is a boss rush on the space station. To give brief thoughts on every boss in the game, the Green Hill inspired one is just the same as it always was, apart from he does a spin attack which has a very high chance of hitting you in comparison to what he may or may not do in some other variants of this boss fight, like Sonic Mania for example. The Casino Night one is exactly the same, it's just a lot less fun because there's no momentum based gameplay here, so that's a complete waste of a boss fight if you ask me, because that is one of my favourite bosses in Sonic 2. The Labyrinth Zone boss is fine, I suppose. You just chase him through the stage as normal, but then when you reach the top, this time you have the risk of being crushed by pillars, which is actually quite challenging. It never killed me, and it didn't kill me in the boss rush either, but I can see why it would be a challenging fence to jump over. It's not an easy boss fight by any means. It requires you to have good reaction times, and thankfully mine were just quite on point when playing the game. But then when it comes to the Metropolis Zone fight, you can just cheese it like you can in the original, but then he starts to fly away, which you have to chase him down, and it is extremely easy. Then when it comes to the final boss being the Death Egg Mark II, holy shit. There is taking a difficult boss and then making it easy, but throwing in bullshit to try and make it have some difficulty to it. So basically, this boss fight is not hard. You get rings for it. In comparison to Sonic 2, you had 0, which instantly, that's a big red flag if you ask me, because the Death Egg is supposed to be a final hurdle, not another obstacle. And then also as well, when you're doing this Death Egg fight, you can just basically cheese the first phase. The second phase, when you can't directly attack it and you have to wait for its arm to fly out and then hit it back at it, that's a bit more challenging, but again, the game doesn't tell you you need to do this. You need to somehow figure it out by yourself. Which I wasn't a fan of. It took me a few lives to figure that out. And then when you finally finish that, you think you're done. It will do one massive leap and hit the middle of the stage, which if you don't hit it within like 5 seconds or so, the stage collapses and you die. Which is pretty bullshit, I will admit. But, and I mean, of course it took me a few lives to figure that one out as well, but I don't know, it's not the hardest thing in the world, it's just not exactly fair. because you get told nothing about this. You just need to basically try and sight read this fight, which again, like I said, it's not fair, but oh well. And that's why I do not like the death egg in this game. It's a very poor interpretation. It just basically relies on bullshit to try and make it difficult. And I'm not a fan of death egg in Sonic Generations either, and that had little to no challenge involved in it. But at least it felt a lot more fun to play than this version of the death egg, if you ask me. This just wasn't fun. Like, it brings back the whole strategy and patience thing from the original boss fight, but the fact that there is nothing prior to it stopping you if you lose a life, it's just a lot less challenging, because you go straight to the checkpoint and can continue as normal. Where if you was in Sonic 2, you have 0 rings and you have to do the Silver Sonic fight before you do this one again. And the fact that this game is dishing you out lives before you reach this point as well, it just takes away basically all of the challenge, and it's not fun. This is a very poor effort at making a death egg fight harder. It's just not good. I came into this game with a glimmer of hope that maybe I was wrong all those years ago. Maybe Sonic 4 isn't that bad of a game, but if anything, I just found it worse than I originally did. I just did not have any fun with Sonic 4 at all. When I first played this game back in the day, I thought this was one of the worst games I've ever played. And while that's a bit harsh to say the least, I have definitely played worse games than Sonic 4. This is one of the worst Sonic games I've played. I used to give games like Sonic 3 shit. I will never say anything bad about Sonic 3 ever again after replaying this game. My least favourite Sonic game still stands to be Sonic and the Secret Rings. But if I had to pick another least favourite Sonic game that was a console game and a main series entry, it would have to be Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1. Because my oh my, this is the definition of an unfun mess that is nothing more than an absolute cash grab at nostalgia pondering fools that wanted more than they was basically given for the Hedgehog's anniversary. You want to play a good classic Sonic game? Play Sonic Mania. You want to play a good interpretation of classic Sonic? Play Sonic Generations. That's all I can say. Sonic Hedgehog 4 Episode 1 is an absolute dumpster fire of a game, and I am never ever going to revisit this game in at least a decade, because I have no reason to, unless I want to marathon the games. Sonic 4 is just going to sit in my Steam library untouched for years to come. Thank you for watching this episode of the Sonic 4 review, and I'll see you all next time for the Sonic 4 Episode 2 review.